You are listening to the voice of the Frontline Protector here at the Private Officer Beat Radio. Every week you'll hear breaking news, topics of training, information for the industry of security, public safety, and law enforcement. So strap in, hang on, we're about to speed off in this episode of the Private Officer Beat Radio. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this edition of the Private Officer Beat Radio. So much this week once again to talk about, a lot of breaking news, an in-depth two-part series about private police, what they are, what they're not, their authority, their training, where they are, a whole lot of information. We've covered this before, but because of their sudden popularity, due in part by the anti-police, defund the police movement, private police, who are real police, sworn law enforcement, are seeing a surge in the need for their service. So we're going to really kind of go through this with a fine-tooth comb and really give you more information about who, what, where, when, and how this week and next. Hello, everyone. I'm your host for the Private Officer Beat Radio right here every single week. Today, broadcasting right out here at a training that we're doing in Maryland and Montgomery County, Maryland, and we're really enjoying it. Beautiful weather. If you've never been to Washington, D.C. during the cherry blossoms, woo, you got to go. It's a beautiful sight. And if you are a photographer, someone who loves the outdoors, you can mix all of that in. And just like me, I love taking pictures. I'm an amateur, wannabe professional photographer, have been for many years. 3 cameras, all the gear. And, of course, I love the outdoors, and I love what I do. So sit back, relax, and come on out to D.C., Maryland, Virginia, otherwise known as the DMV, whenever you can. We're going to cover a lot of topics. The Private Officer International Association is an organization that really is here to help you. If you're not already a member, we invite you to go to our website at privateofficer.org. More than 45 member benefits, free and discounted training, so many different benefits. We hear all the time that this is remarkable, nothing like it out there, and that is completely true. We have always, since we have been in existence for 17 and a half years now, always been on the side of our private officers internationally, our law enforcement, our private police officers, public safety, even bouncers and bail enforcement and bail bonds. But I just don't understand the lack of common sense that so many people have. And, of course, our employees are coming from the pool of people, humans. They're not robots. But what we're seeing is so many do not have just common sense. Cognitively, they're not thinking before they're doing. In Minneapolis, Minnesota, a security officer working at a convenience store got into an altercation over a face mask. A person not wearing a face mask. This has been a story, a headline, since the beginning of COVID. There has been arguments, assaults, attacks on both sides by both the customer and the security officer. At least 8 security officers have been charged with murder over these type of situations, enforcing COVID violations, which are not really criminal laws, but just policies. And there's been a number of security officers murdered during these type of interventions or interactions, I should say. And unfortunately, this security officer somehow just left common sense at home, just left cognitive thinking at home, and let his own attitude, personality get the best of him. A man not wearing a face mask. He eventually has enough of the security officer's mouth belittling, according to the news and report from law enforcement. The security officer was really on this guy. He was there with a friend of his, just buying a couple of soft drinks. He decided to walk back out to the car and let the woman make the purchase, but the security officer bumped him. The man bumped the security officer, and that really ticked the security officer off, and he spit in the face of the man as he followed him to the parking lot. And what for? Why? First of all, why follow the man to the parking lot? He's leaving. The whole situation of him not wearing the mask is over with. But the security officer, he did. Spit in the man's face, the customer's face. And then, out of the blue, for no reason whatsoever, according to investigators of the police, he drew his firearm and shot and killed the customer. Now he's charged with intentional murder. And his life is over. They have video surveillance, of course, both inside and outside of the store, that captured the whole event, every single moment. I don't understand how people can let these things explode into this type of situation where you take a man's life. For what? We see this way too frequent, people. We see this way too often. In the upcoming weeks, we're going to be talking about cognitive thinking, about judgment calls, about assessing. We've talked about these subjects before. But unfortunately, with everything that's happening in the last year and a half, everything that's been happening in the evolution of security in the last 10 to 15 years, we need to keep talking about this. And you need to be letting others hear this topic, this training, because it's free. We're going to take a quick break. We got a lot to talk about. I'm Rick McCann, the host of the Private Officer Beat Radio, founder and CEO of Private Officer International, Armor College, and other companies. We're excited to be here. Very excited to be here. And we got a lot more to talk about. Coming right back.
a very simple thing. It only takes 2 seconds. We all know we should do it. We all say we do it. But do we? About 35,000 people were killed in motor vehicle accidents last year. More than half were not wearing a seatbelt. A brother, a father, a mother, a best friend. Is it worth it? I lost a sister. Don't let it happen to you and your family. Tell the people you love to buckle up.
What a fantastic day.
What a fantastic day.
The water's like glass.
The water is like glass.
Don't forget the soda.
Don't forget the life jackets.
Who wants the 8 and who wants the 15?
Who wants the inflatables?
What a great day.
To be on the water.
So glad you saw me go over.
That was so funny. When you went over and your life jacket inflated.
Never go out without a life jacket on again.
What a great day we had.
When it comes to wearing life jackets, make the right choice. You're in command. Vote responsibly. This message brought to you by the National Safe Boating Council and the U.S. Coast Guard.
Shots fired! Shots fired! Officer down! Officer down! We had an overwhelming response last week to this special presentation about Officer Down. And unfortunately, while we were actually on the air last Monday, in that 24-hour period, 3 security officers were involved in gun battles and were shot. Thankfully, all of them survived. As far as we know, they're still alive. But this is just a continuation every single day of the dangers that our frontline personnel face. And yet, very few people want to talk about it. Very few people want to take it to the front line and really train and let the public know. And employers are not wanting to supply the appropriate training, protective wear, firearms, so that their employees, their security officers, their frontline protectors will have a fighting chance. I do not know, actually, how to get the point across to individuals working in this line of work, company owners, managers, supervisors. I don't really get it. And we can sit here and talk all day long about liability, about cost factors. I got one thing to say. Do you value your employee's life? Do you think about when you're home safe, comfortably, and you've got 500, 5,000, 50,000 people out there working on the front line protecting assets and people? Do you ever think about, are they safe? What are they going through? I know we think about, as owners of security companies and public safety organizations, we think about, are they doing their job? Are they even awake? Are they playing games on their phones? Are they wasting my money? Yeah, we do think about that. We do think about that. But more importantly, do you stop just a few moments to think about their safety? Are they safe tonight? You see, as a security company owner since 1989, when my phone rings at 3 in the morning, midnight, the first thing I think about is, God, let there not be somebody injured or killed. When I started out in the security business ownership, we concentrated on patrols and Section 8 properties, and we had a lot of people out there in the overnight hours, and they were in harm's way. There was no doubt about it. We did the training long before it was even required. We did equip everyone with firearms and certify them every year. We gave them continual education We did everything that we could to screen the best applicants, but every time that phone rang in the overnight hours, that's the first thing I thought. I hope to God no one has been injured. And we came through it quite well, actually. A few scrapes here and there. No deadly use of force. Security officers had a few bullets fly past their head, but luckily no one was injured. And still today, God is with us. Luck is on our side. I don't know. The planets are all lined up, and we haven't had that situation. Even with our own police force. 2 police forces now. So the odds are not really in my favor. They're going downhill. But we have to get the message across. We've got to stop pussyfooting around. We've got to stop trying to hide behind the issue. I hate to tell you this, but the media knows what's going on. And they understand the number of deadly force issues between security and involving security. We just put a press release out this past week. 26 security officers murdered. There's been more than 300 gun incidents involving security. Shots fired at them firing shots, gunfire on their job. And those are just the cases, the incidents that we know about. Those aren't even all of them. It might be 3,000. But through our dedicated news staff, we were able to confirm and track 300 plus that have occurred since January 1st, 2021. This is kind of like businesses and churches that say, we don't need security. If you're a security company owner, you've heard this a time or two, I'm sure. We don't need security. Nah, we're in a good area. Nothing's ever happened here. We've never had a situation. We've never had an active shooter. We've never had anyone come in and cause any problems. Our church is open 24 hours a day, 16 hours a day. Yeah, nah, don't worry about it, buddy. I'll never forget. Going to a hotel. I knew that they had issues on their property. Long before I had this association with the full-time news staff, I paid attention. And that's the one thing that you have to do when you're in business. You have to pay attention to your own community. Understand what the news is. Understand what the situations are. It helps in marketing, but it also lets you know who the community is and where the dangerous parts are and what's happening. And so I knew that this hotel property had situations, shootings, people robbed in the parking lot. It was right off a main interstate, Interstate 65, which is a major north-south superhighway, you might as well say, because it's always jam-packed. But this guy, I went in, introduced myself, and gave him some literature, and I told him the service that we provide, both physical on-site as well as patrol, highly marked vehicles, dispatch, blah, blah, blah. We don't need no security. I've got plenty of bullets. No, believe me, I've got plenty of bullets. Well, that was back before there was a crunch on bullet availability, obviously. But he would not come off from it. He tried to relay to me that he could defend himself, protect his property, protect his guests, protect his staff, protect himself. Everything was going to be fine because he had enough bullets. And that is the mindset of a lot of people. You know what? I am security. I've got AR-15. I've got 2 Glock 40s. I've got an Uzi. I've got a whole closet full of ammunition. Just the other day on Facebook, I saw somebody who showed a picture while everyone else is complaining about not being able to find ammunition or the right kind of ammunition, the right caliber. He showed a picture of his storage closet jam-packed from ceiling to floor multiple shelves and every caliber that you could think of. Probably calibers. He doesn't even own guns that take those caliber bullets, but he had them. And he jokingly said, I'm stocked. I'm here for whatever comes my way. I've got all the bullets I'm going to need. While everyone's trying to search to buy bullets. This is kind of like toilet paper. You know, as soon as coronavirus hit, what did everybody do? I don't know why. I still have not figured this one out. They ran out to the store and they bought toilet paper and paper towels by the cases. I confess, I was one of them. My office manager was one of them. We stocked up the closets. We have multiple offices and homes and all of that. So we didn't know if there was going to be a supply. In fact, there were numerous times that there was no toilet paper or paper towels. So now we have enough for the next, I don't know, century maybe. In fact, my office manager is still buying it. So unfortunately, the mindset of people is that we don't need trained security. We don't need to be worried about what's going to happen because it's not going to happen to us. And as security company owners and professionals in this industry, I'm telling you, you do need to train your people. You need to protect them. Just recently, a casino security officer at the Wynn Resort in Las Vegas, one of the most well-known, top-notch resorts, casinos, hotel, was murdered by an employee just because he was going to check on what was happening in the parking garage. Now, the casinos on the Strip, they've begun issuing body armor to all of their security officers. It's kind of like locking the door after the hens get out, they say. It's a little bit too late. Maybe it will save a life of another casino officer, maybe not. But we've got to be proactive, preventative now. Got a lot more to talk about when we come back. You're listening to the Private Officer Beat Radio. And if you need body armor, remember our friends at Body Armor USA. They've got what it takes to protect you, whether it's splash-resistant vests, protective clothing, protective gloves. Body Armor USA. Great guys. Check them out online today. We'll be right back.
Human trafficking is slavery.
And it happens all over America.
Any child, any woman, any man could potentially become a victim of human trafficking.
I am a victim of labor trafficking.
I was victim of child sex trafficking, but now I own my body.
Human trafficking is any kind of forced labor.
It can happen to anybody.
I am a mother.
I am an author.
I am a son.
I'm an advocate.
I am an educator.
I'm a sister.
I am a brother.
I'm so much more than what happened to me.
I am strong.
I am brave.
I am outspoken.
I am compassionate.
I am a survivor.
I'm a survivor.
I am a survivor.
I am a survivor.
I am a survivor.
I am a survivor of human trafficking.
Hey everyone, you're listening to the voice of the Frontline Protector right here on the Private Officer Radio Network. Now don't go away because we are coming right back when we've got a whole lot more right here on the Private Officer Beat Radio. Body Armor USA, we've got what it takes to protect you. Remember, our friends are the professionals when it comes to protective gear, clothing, body armor, whether that be slash resistant, rifle round resistant, some of the top quality products you'll ever find. Body Armor USA. Visit them on the web, call them on the phone. Whatever you do, let them know that Private Officer International sent you. They are the top experts. Body Armor USA. In the news this week, tragically, another security officer marking number 30, has been murdered in Volusia County, Florida. Security officer working at the United Methodist Children's Home went after a teen who had left the property unauthorized, got into a confrontation, was punched in the head multiple times by this teenager. He then spent some time on the ventilator, multiple days, and succumbed to his injuries. Michael Ellis, 52 years old, died of head trauma. The teen was originally charged with aggravated assault on a security officer, which is a felony in Florida. We hope those charges will be soon escalated and that he will be tried as an adult for murder, which is exactly what should happen. 30 security officers murdered in 2021. In San Rafael, California, a Muslim security officer said that after a shift, she came out to find that her car had not only been vandalized, but that there were pig feet and bacon inside. This is disgusting, outrageous. Police say she also had a previous confrontation with the supervisor. And while this was under investigation, the company Securitas fired her. This is going to be followed by our Court Watch division. I'm sure lawsuits will be filed and will be there. We monitor this situation. Virginia has become the latest to ban police use of any type of facial recognition. I don't agree with this whatsoever, but it is what it is. Virginia joins the states of California, New Hampshire, New York, and Oregon, and Vermont, along with a number of other major cities such as Boston and Portland that have banned the total use of biometric technology. I have literally seen dozens of cases in recent years solved because of this technology. If you're in public, the federal courts have already ruled time and time again you have no expectation of privacy. So what's the problem? Well, one of the problems was that several of these facial recognition companies, including Clearview AI, had scraped much of social media platforms, including Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Again, you have no expectation of privacy. You're putting your information out there. You're putting your pictures out there. You might as well get a billboard and put your social security number on it because it's public. Why do this and then scream, oh, you're invading my privacy? No, we're not. You got it out there for anyone and everyone and everybody to see. Give me a break, people. Either you want privacy or you don't. If you want privacy, don't get on social media. Don't use social media. Don't use credit cards. Don't use the internet. Don't go in public. What can I tell you? Gainesville Township, Michigan, another small town police department that is no longer. This past week, they turned in their badges, their guns, their uniforms, all of their equipment, the keys for patrol cars, but the township left one part-time employee. That was the police chief, Mark Schmitzer, who will continue to be the police chief of a now defunct department. Okay, all right. I don't know what he's going to do all by himself part-time. Of course, the county sheriff's department And the Michigan State Police are going to step in to help police this small town. But they said the main reason why they had to defunct the police department wasn't to fund the police. It was the funding itself. They just didn't have the funding and hadn't for quite some time. Phoenix, Arizona, at the Quick Trip, a convenience store. One that I love, actually. Traveled to many areas of the country, and I use Quick Trips. Very clean, great place. But in this situation, an armed security officer got into a confrontation at 27th and Peoria Avenues, and got involved in the confrontation with a 29-year-old man and shot him. Police are investigating. The security officer allegedly used lethal force, even though there was no incident that would involve it, according to police. They did not arrest him, but the 22-year-old security officer is facing scrutiny, and police are going to send this to the grand jury, and we will definitely be following this up as well. A bill, the first of its kind in the United States, now in the House, Texas bill. It's all about armed school security immunity, like police have immunity. This will give school security immunity for using any level of force to perform their jobs. In Texas, as in Florida, it's a criminal offense, a felony, to assault a security officer in uniform or out of the uniform if you know he's a security officer. So this is going to take it up another notch. The Committee on Judiciary and Civil Jurisprudence voted 5-1 in favor of the bill on Wednesday. The committee is sure to clear it and send it to the governor. This is maybe a sign of good things to come. Security officers who rightfully, legally use lethal or non-lethal force should be protected just like police officers. It is becoming more and more apparent that more security officers are having to use force. We have a new study coming out. It'll be out in about a week that shows that security officers have been involved in several thousand confrontations, assaults, situations, over 300 uses of deadly force in the last 3 months. We'll be reporting on this along with a news source that we've been using lately, and we'll tell you more about that coming up. A lot of things in the news. Be sure to go to our daily news blog, privateofficerbreakingnews.blogspot.com. privateofficerbreakingnews.blogspot.com. I know it's kind of a long URL address, but it will be worth it. Check it out every single day, and be sure to sign up right now for our breaking news alerts at privateofficer.org. Sadly, out of Minneapolis, Minnesota, a security officer there's been charged with murder over a face mask. I don't understand. I really don't. Why this guy had to go to this extreme. I don't get it. He followed the person outside of the store after he left, saying he bumped into him. A confrontation ensued, and he killed the man. I don't understand it. In Danville, Pennsylvania, Geisner Medical Center has added yet another canine team. We've talked about this year after year for the last 8 or 9, 10 years maybe. Hospitals are adding security canine teams because not only are they very effective at really causing criminals not to come onto the property, but they help in de-escalation, and they also have another added benefit. Most of these dogs are really gentle beings, and they'll be lap dogs. They're very gentle around children, adults, unless the master turns them on, gives them the clue, gives them the key. You know, they can change just like that. And so it is very, very, very beneficial. In Santa Monica, California, yet another town that has added the, quote, ambassador program, unquote, a uniform hospitality outreach unarmed, who's providing security on segways, foot, and vehicle, and all they really are victims waiting to happen. They can't defend themselves. It says the safety ambassadors will respond to quality of life offenses. So not the police, not the Santa Monica police will respond to violations of the law, but unarmed, unqualified safety ambassadors will respond, and hopefully the public will cooperate with them. Good luck with that. We've seen this in many, many cities. Anchorage, Alaska tried it recently for the homeless. All they got was beatdowns and problems. We're having more and more cities trying to put unarmed, untrained, unskilled, non-professional law enforcement, non-professional public safety people in place of police. And without the proper training, without the proper equipment, it doesn't work. In San Diego, California, a fatal shooting at the Ralph's grocery store in downtown San Diego on February the 12th. A security officer shot a man after a confrontation. The man threw a bottle at the security officer, and he shot and killed the person at G Street near First Avenue in San Diego. Well, guess what? You would think that might develop some criminal charges against the security officer. Yeah, he threw a bottle. In some states, that's called a missile, and that could be considered a felony charge itself. And nope. The DA says they decided no charges. Police investigated. They felt that it was a warranted response. No charges for the security officer. The widow of a security officer killed just recently in Henderson, Nevada, which is a suburb of Las Vegas. He was trying to direct a large big box truck marked straight 60, was ran over in January in a guarded, gated community. He was just trying to be a good Samaritan, back up that truck. The truck ran over him. Now the wife is suing for negligence, saying that the driver was reckless in his conduct. And, of course, we're sad at the loss of life. In New Haven, Connecticut, they've gotten rid of almost all SRO school resource officers, and they've switched to their own in-house private security. Now, we've actually had a chance to review their security team, unarmed, very little training. The state of Connecticut for contract security requires only 8 hours of training or so, very little, always has. And now they're going to put all of these unarmed security staff throughout the New Haven school system with just 3 school resource officers to cover the high schools. We'll talk more later. I don't see the sense in this whatsoever. These are problems waiting to happen. We're coming right back. Today we're talking about private police and the difference between security and sworn private police officers. We'll be right back here on the Private Officer Beat Radio.
When I was a gang leader, we probably did business together because when people like you buy knockoffs on the street, often the money goes to gangs, and gangs use this easy money for other activities. In other words, they're getting a lot of bang for their buck.
Counterfeits hurt, but you have the power to stop them. Go to www.ncpc.org/getreal. A message from the National Crime Prevention Council and the Bureau of Justice Assistance, U.S. Department of Justice.
Without this woman, my father couldn't have had his hip replaced.
Without these people, I'd be dead.
This man helped my son through leukemia.
Do something amazing. Give blood.
If you're not already already receiving breaking news and our bi-weekly newsletter, Officer Down Reports, and discount training news in your personal or business email, then go to our website right now at privateofficer.org. privateofficer.org. A Dropbox will come down. Just fill out your info, and you'll be the first, one of the first, for sure, to know about what's happening in the security industry. You'll know when a security officer is killed. You'll also get these great discounts on training and equipment and so much more. privateofficer.org. Did you know that more than 30 states here in the U.S. have laws that provide for private police officers and private police agencies? Now, we've talked about this a number of times through the years, but as I stated earlier, as the popularity of using private police as opposed to public law enforcement continues to grow, we're seeing more and more agencies being put to work and replacing public law enforcement. Now, there's a lot of talk and scuttlebutt about this being a very risky venture, that private police are nothing but security guards. They don't have any training, and this is going to be a catastrophe. And it's actually just the opposite. The truth is that there is training, there are provisions, standards, and oversight of private police. Now, in the next 2 weeks, we're going to cover some states that currently have language within their law that provides for private police departments and officers. We're going to be talking about what the law says, how they're trained, how they're governed, what their authority is, what they can and cannot do, and a whole lot more. So let's start this week by talking about several states that I'm very familiar with. Let's start with North Carolina. In the state of North Carolina, all private police officers known under the statute as company police must be basic law enforcement academy certified, what's known in the state of North Carolina as BLET, basic law enforcement training. They've got to have the same training as every police officer in the state. It is the basic course that every law enforcement officer takes. It doesn't matter if they're private, if they're university police, if they're a city police officer, if they're a deputy sheriff. This is the standard of North Carolina. This is what's required by North Carolina Post. And when they graduate, they don't have to work for a private agency. They can go work for any city. They can go to work for any town, the county, the state, if they want to, because they have the same equivalent training. They've gone to the same academy. They don't go to a private academy. They don't go to some private school. They go to the certified, post-certified law enforcement academy, and they take the BLET. So, having said that, I'll also tell you that they can self-enlist. They can pay for their own academy, as you can in many states. Not all. Some you have to be sponsored, but you can, in many states, pay for your own. So if I am a BLET, North Carolina trained law enforcement person, and I've graduated from the academy, why would I want to work for a private agency, a hospital, a school? Why not go to a town or a city? Honestly, many people who get into law enforcement are not really wanting to be part of NYPD or LAPD or Detroit or Chicago. They do want to make a difference, but on a smaller scale. And they see working for a university or a hospital, a college or a school system, or even a private business as a way where they can combine their security skills, their training there, as well as law enforcement, and they're making a difference in some small or large way. They're not going to be out there making 100 arrests a month. They're not conducting 20 traffic stops a day, but they are fulfilling the obligations of their job. And if they have to make an arrest, if they have to conduct an investigation, they are legally able to. In North Carolina, private police officers, known as company police, can be both employed by universities, hospitals, and private business entities, as well as they can be employed by themselves, by their own agency. They can establish a company police agency and provide all of the same law enforcement services as any local police or county sheriff. They use blue lights. They can use radar if they are trained and certified. They can write traffic tickets. They can conduct traffic stops. But there are limitations. As with any university police department across the country, their limits are going to be on the property where they have direct control. They either own, lease, or have some type of fiduciary legal access to that property, or they're under contract, like in an apartment, a hotel, or any other type of business that a security company might contract. They can do the same thing. They can provide those law enforcement services. In North Carolina, company police officers also have what's called fresh pursuit. If a crime occurs on the property where they have jurisdiction, they can pursue that person off the property. They can also continue attempting to apprehend someone if they have arrested them and that person has broken free and tried to escape or has escaped. Fresh pursuit allows any police officer to continue that pursuit across boundaries, across their jurisdiction. So if you're a police officer in Spokane, Washington, and you are trying to stop someone who's committed a crime and they go into Seattle, you still have that continuing authority under the fresh pursuit doctrine. So North Carolina, even though they graduate from the academy, the same academy as any police officer, they have restricted authority. They cannot pull people over on public streets. Even though they're a police officer, they're limited to those properties that they have direct control over, unless it's a fresh pursuit situation. Like I said, they do use blue lights. Their vehicles are marked just like police. The only distinction is somewhere along the way on their vehicle, it's going to say XYZ Company Police. Allied Universal has had a number of contracts in the state. G4S has had a number of contracts, including the Transit Authority in Charlotte, and they use company police. They go through the same process. They hire people who have the BLET certification, and they are police officers. Now, the transit system in Charlotte is quite extensive, adding lines all the time. So their authority not only is the platforms and the transit station in the downtown area of Charlotte, but their authority is also any place that line runs. And it doesn't have to be on the track itself. It can be in the vicinity of the track, which gives them a very wide, county-wide authority, actually. And they are often involved in arrests, pursuits, and in cooperation with other jurisdictions. They're providing a much-needed law enforcement service that CMPD, the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department, just would not be able to provide. Let's move on up to the state's, up to the country's capital and talk about Washington, D.C., the District of Columbia. Again, another agency, another area where I'm very familiar with. In D.C., prior to the 1960s and 70s, security, for the most part, was unarmed because in the District of Columbia at that time, no private citizen, including security, had the right to own firearms or to carry them openly outside. They could own them possibly. They could not carry them. But because many security companies began contracting with the federal government, many military installations and offices are located in the district, a law was passed and allowed private security that was contracted with the government to carry firearms while on the job. Now, in Washington, D.C., it is the District of Columbia Metropolitan Police Department themselves who issue the commission. And so you go through a training process, you go through a firearms process, you go through a less lethal training for each item, you go through the background, you go through a whole slew of processes, but it's the District of Columbia who eventually issues that commission. And because of that, anything that the special police officer, as they're known, does, or anything that is done against them, is investigated by the Washington, D.C. Metropolitan Police Department. And that includes any use of force situation. If any special police officer, SPO, uses any level of force, he has to submit a report to the District of Columbia Police Department. Internal Affairs, who investigate, obviously, situations involving their own police, is the exact agency, the exact division of the D.C. Police that investigates any complaints made against the SPO. They also, the use of force division of the police, they also investigate any use of force, lethal or non-lethal, that an SPO uses, because they are commissioned by who? By the District of Columbia Metropolitan Police. Therefore, just like investigating one of their own, they investigate that SPO. So in Washington, D.C., you have both armed and unarmed SPOs. Just like you'll find in North Carolina, they can be employed by a university or a college. They can be employed by a hospital. They can be employed by a private security company who provides private police services. Now, these SPOs, similar to the state of North Carolina, their limited jurisdiction is going to be, again, the private properties that they have direct control over. Either they own, lease, rent, have a right to be at, some other express permission to be on the property, or they're in the contract. They're providing services for a hotel, an apartment complex, a park. So, again, although limited, every police department, whether that be your local city, county, town, or village, police department is limited in their jurisdiction. They can't just arrest everybody across the state lines or throughout the state. Their limit is their jurisdiction, whether that be a 300-person town or village, or that be a 300,000 population city. That's their limit, unless they are in what's called fresh pursuit. Same thing with private police officers. Now, in some areas, you will find that they have an MOU, a Memorandum of Understanding, and we're going to get into that during this training. But in some areas, police departments accept the help of private police, especially in areas where they have small police department, small county sheriff's department. We're coming right back here in just a minute. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll continue talking about private police agencies.
Can we be real for a minute? I'm a high school math teacher, and I'm a firefighter.
We're going to have you out in just a minute, okay?
I'm a designer.
I'm a retired VP in business.
And I'm a student.
I'm a mother.
I'm a business analyst, and I'm a volunteer firefighter.
You thought we just fought fire? Firefighters get trained to do so many things.
Right here. Be sharp.
What we do is serious business.
3/4 of the nation's first responders are volunteers. That includes here in Connecticut. And lately, it's been harder than ever, with fewer citizens volunteering.
From teenage cadets like me
to seasoned veterans like me.
So what are you waiting for?
You ready to make a difference?
Ready to join our team?
Your community needs you. We need you. Visit everydayhero.ct.org or stop by your local firehouse today and take the first step of joining your fire department.
I met Luke when I was pretty much born. We kind of just grew up together. He got his license when he was 16. We were going to the beach, and Luke was driving. I was in the passenger seat, and all of a sudden, I don't remember anything. I wasn't conscious for it. We got hit by a drunk driver. I feel like I knew right away that it was never going to be the same. I don't know. The doctors, they were telling me I was so lucky to be alive. When I found out that he died on impact, I didn't really feel lucky. And sometimes I still don't. Drinking and driving is completely unnecessary, and I think it's selfish if you do it. It's not worth taking that risk, because you never know what's going to happen.
The state of Ohio is another state that recognizes private police through statutes and who's very familiar with the use of those private police officers and agencies. Currently, Ohio, OPATA, which stands for the Ohio Peace Officer Training Academy, OPATA, says there's more than 850 sworn private police officers working for at least 39 employers, mainly schools, universities, hospitals, large business entities. OPATA, the Ohio Peace Officer Training Academy, is responsible for their training curriculum, and these officers, they do have in-service every year. And as we've spoke about with North Carolina and Washington, D.C., OPATA oversees these standards, and these officers are sworn police officers. They have jurisdiction, once again, on all the property that they have a legal right to be on, that they either lease, own, or are employed by the person or business that does own, lease, or have direct control of those properties. And they can patrol the streets surrounding those properties, and that's one of the things that you'll see private police have the authority in most areas to patrol a certain amount of the surrounding streets, especially in situations involving universities, colleges, and hospitals, because oftentimes you'll find that those businesses have properties scattered throughout the city, throughout the blocks and blocks, especially with large campuses and hospitals. And so those officers are crisscrossing public streets all the time. Therefore, they're allowed that authority while they're on that public street. In Ohio, these police officers work for some of the largest hospitals and universities that you can think of. And they are, again, dressed like police officers, driving police vehicles, blue lights. They can stop you for traffic violations. They can pursue you. They can make arrests on their property and off their property. And once again, they also have fresh pursuit, allowing them to continue authority across boundaries, across jurisdiction, out into the city of Columbus, Cincinnati, Dayton, wherever they're located. They can cross those boundaries to make an arrest. These police officers in Ohio, they have to, once again, maintain the same standards of any law enforcement. They have to follow the same laws, the same doctrines. They don't make up their own. They don't make up laws for their campus or the university. They can enforce all state statutes and local laws, meaning ordinances or other laws that, just like any other police officer. Ohio has used private police officers for many years. There's been some scrutiny lately of public and private police, and so it's not, inconceivable to think that private police will begin to see more scrutiny, either by the Attorney General, the public, the media, and we do see that happening, actually. Many states have private police, over 30 states. They all have their own requirement of training. They all have their standards, just like any police department. If you go to Texas, you go to New York, you go to Ohio, Florida, any place, each state is sovereign, and therefore they come up with their standard of training, their minimum requirements to meet the training for each position, whether it be a firefighter, police officer, nurse, whatever. However, they have to have certain curriculum and use certain criteria to develop those standards so that they are similar to other states, but what's going to vary is the amount of hours. You go to one state for a police officer, it could be 640. You go to another state, it could be 920. You go to another, it could be 400. And in our Citizens Police Academy right now, we're in week 5. We've gone through that very conversation in the first couple of weeks of the academy. And it really opened the eyes of many people who didn't know what the standards of training was, who set them, who regulated them, and who came up with the curriculum and the hours. But it is a state-by-state standard, the curriculum, and the number of hours. And so just the same way with private police, the curriculum, the standards will be similar, but will also be different. We're going to move along from D.C. and head a little bit further north to New York. And once again, you're going to find, and by the way, I did skip over New Jersey. They also have special police, but we're going to discuss them next week because they operate a little bit different. But in New York, you're going to find, very similarly in their statutes, they allow under the New York State Peace Officer Code statute that security personnel and private officers can go through a 99-hour basic peace officer academy plus training for firearms, use of force, and non-lethal weapons, and they can become sworn law enforcement officers known as peace officers. Well, some people have questioned, well, what's the difference between peace officer and police officer? Actually, nothing. The statutes in most states call law enforcement peace officers. In fact, multiple states after the riots of about 6 years ago began posting on their vehicles and websites peace officers. Richland County, South Carolina, one of the agencies featured on Live PD, was one of the first to put peace officer on their vehicles. That was kind of to soften the approach so that the word police wasn't out there boldly in front of you, and kind of soften the approach even though it means the same thing as law enforcement or police. So in New York, peace officers can be armed or unarmed. They enforce all criminal justice laws, so any state statute, and all local laws. they must have in-service training every year and qualify on any weapon that they use annually. Their jurisdiction, very much like what we've been talking about, private property. There are a number of New York City agencies, everything from sanitation to Parks Department, who use peace officers, sworn personnel, to write citations, uphold the law, make arrests, investigate crimes that don't necessarily need the NYPD's response, but NYPD does respond frequently to the calls of peace officers to back them up and supply them with additional resources. Peace officers in New York have jurisdiction on the property where they have legal rights to be, that they own, lease, or are contracted, or their employer owns it or has legal authority over that piece of land, whether it be the library, the park, the school, wherever it might be. Very similar to North Carolina, D.C., Ohio, and Michigan that we've already talked about. These private police officers, they are real police. And like every police officer on the planet, they have limited jurisdiction. Unfortunately, many people don't realize what the authority of these private police are. We're going to get into that more in part 2 next week. So far, we talked about North Carolina. They are the only state that I know of that requires a full graduation from the basic law enforcement police training academy. They have to go through every step that any other police officer has to go through. Other states have modified training requirements. Next week, we'll talk more about some of the other states that are involved, how these private police officers differ from your everyday security officers, and also what their authority is and how they're being used. Thanks for being with us in this edition of the Private Officer Beat Radio. Be kind to each other, do some training, help each other out, work with your coworkers, with your neighboring private agencies. Let's keep everybody safe. Until the next time, be blessed, be safe, and we'll see you right here on the radio.